السلام عليك يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله واجب الإكرام كذا إمام صاحب واجب الإكرام كذا قارئ صاحب elders Huzur, brothers in Islam, first my sincerest thanks to the Intizamiya committee, to everyone associated with this beautiful masjid of the Masjid for humbly inviting me to this beautiful part of the country to inshallah ta'ala talk about a very important topic, namely the 21st century mosque. Secondly, my apologies for not standing. There's not a physical reason behind it. When I was preparing this particular program, I just felt that it was more of a talk rather than a taqreer, rather than a lecture. Number two, although I'm going to be speaking for about 30-45 minutes, the program by its nature and the topic area is one where I think it's very important and essential that I hear other opinions as well, that you can inform. So it's part talk, part discussion. وفوق كل ذي علم عليم. There were many learned people here. So I think this is a topic area which affects us all, that what does the Masjid look like tomorrow? How do we serve the needs of our community in this very volatile time? This is not the job of Imam Sahib or my job, or Kabari Sahib or my job. I think everyone has a certain duty and responsibility to look into that. What am I going to be talking about? The subject area in the 21st century Masjid. Inshallah, with the tawfiq of Allah, with the wasila of our Hafiz Ather Hussain Al-Azhari. There's only three areas that we want to talk about. And I hope and I pray that the elders here in this masjid will be able to take benefit. The youngest from amongst you will be able to take benefit as well. Number one, purely as a reminder, I'm going to talk briefly about the importance and superiority of the masjid in Islam. It's just a reminder, we know how important this sacred space is that we are sitting in right now. Number two, although there are 1,001 changes in modern day society, I'm going to mention three trends which have taken place in the last 15 years or so. Trends in society as a whole. What we are seeing in the climate of this country. What we are seeing that is happening today that perhaps wasn't happening a decade ago. Things which weren't happening or were happening before. I'm going to talk about three trends. Number three, what I'm going to do then is take each of those trends and show how it is affecting the masjid. And then at the end, I'm only going to mention, I'll talk about 3 or 4 points of my conclusion and what I think is the future for Muslims in this country, especially when it comes to our Masjid. And that's where, inshallah ta'ala, you come in, and I certainly want to hear what you think about where we are going with the importance of the masjid, where we are going with the importance of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. عليه توكلت وإليه أنيب ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. To start with that, the superiority and the importance of the masjid. Like I said, I'm only going to remind you about the importance, we all know about it. Suffice to say, the first building that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the construction of on earth was a masjid, a place of worship. The second place of a building, you could say, that appeared on earth was also a masjid, al-Masjid al-Aqsa, which was 40 years after that. How important must a masjid be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deemed it important that the first building, real building to be put on earth, was a place where his worship would take place. The Prophet ﷺ, upon the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, migrated from Makkah to Medina Sharif. As you know, when he reached Medina Sharif, technically he didn't enter the city of Taiba, but he stayed on the outskirts in a place called Quba. Quba, as you know now, is part of Medina Sharif, as a city expands and it keeps up certain suburban areas. Our Messenger ﷺ, with very little possessions, migrated, came to this wonderful area. The first thing he did when he reached Quba and Medina Sharif was not to sort out his own accommodation. It was not to find out where the nearest well was. It wasn't to work out what agriculture would work in the city and which one wouldn't. The first thing that our Messenger ﷺ did when he reached Quba was to build a masjid with his own hands. Nothing else mattered. And so blessed was the fact that our Messenger ﷺ used his hands to build that masjid. And now today, if you do wudu from your hotel and you go to Masjid al-Quba, you only perform 2 rakats of prayer, and Allah will give you the reward as if you have performed and accepted it. So that is the difference between reading a salah in a masjid and a salah in a masjid which was built by our Hafiz Ather Hussain. I say salam to our elders, to our buzurgs, to our predecessors, that when they came to this country in the 50s, late 50s, 60s, that the first thing they did was build masjids. It was very high on their priority. The first thing our buzurg did, and our youngsters will never understand this, unfortunately, I don't understand this, is that they put everything aside and they said we need to make sure that our living is halal. Where are we going to eat from? How are we going to implement Islam? And secondly, the great sacrifice that they did is that they built the madrasa system in order to ensure that they could secure the future of their children. So the very fact that our Messenger when we reached Quba Sharif, the first thing he did was build a masjid. I think to a large extent our buzurg, our elders, they did exactly the same. His grandfather, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve, the first thing they did was build masjid. They followed the sunnah of our Messenger for our Habib, for our master, for our everything. Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The most important night, the most blessed, the most beautiful night in his entire life was the night of Isra wal Mi'raj. This was his personal gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was a secret between a Habib and his Mahmoud. That we have a rough idea of what really went on in Messenger knows. So this night is celebrated, this night is the most important night in the life of our Messenger. Going down to its basics, and in particular when we look at what the Quran has to say about the sacred night, what was this night about? Part of this night was basically a journey from a masjid to a masjid. سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى. This is all things which are reminding you. I'm not telling you anything new. That this area we're sitting in is very important, is very sacred. The final thing I will say is the hadith of our Messenger on this topic area. He said, Ahabbul biladi ila Allahi masajiduha. The most beloved of places in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the mosques. Wa abghadul biladi ila Allahi asbahuha. And the most hated of places are the bazaars, or the marketplaces, or the city centers. We need to take note of this. If we are in a masjid, then we know we are in a place that the Prophet ﷺ approves of. We don't get tired of sitting here, we're not in any rush to get out. When we're in the bazaar, we have the opposite position. When we're in the bazaar, our attitude should be, let's get out of it as quickly as possible. This is a place that Allah hates. Let's do what we need to do and get out. Unfortunately, we see the reversal nowadays. And in order to get the sale, people are there from 5 a.m. in the morning in order to go to the bazaar, in order to go to the city center. But when it comes to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah preserve us. Our attitude towards His attendance is somewhat different. So that was just a very brief intro on the importance of the masjid. I don't need to spend time on this. I am sitting amongst them. The second thing I want to talk about now, like I explained at the beginning, I'm going to talk about 3 trends which are happening in modern society that I see which are very important for us to note, and then inshallah we will see how that is affecting the masjid. Number 1, undoubtedly this is a city which probably is growing and growing. We have to live up to the fact that we now live in a very anti-Islamic climate. People have their guns pointing at us 24/7. It's not just when a terrorist attack happens. Racism is back. If you truly believe that it actually went away from the Our elders would tell you never went away. of secularism. Even with the new Pope this week, it doesn't really cause much ripples now like it did a decade ago. People make joke of religion like never before. We don't have any vested interest. But this week, Donald Trump made mockery of the Pope by putting an AI image of himself on the White House Twitter website. You know, deep down, I have no vested interest, but this hurts me because this is blasphemy. And if it's the Pope today, then tomorrow is going to be one of our religious. And the very fact that there was little uproar in the Christian community scares the life out of me. It shows religion doesn't matter anymore. So this is the general climate, anti-religion, you only believe in the material. But then when it comes to Islam now, you can see that every single story, they try to mold it, they try to portray it as if we are always the perpetuators, we are the Zalim rather than the Muslims. And of course, the issue on Palestine, of course, the issue in Pakistan, it is not helping us. So we have to face up to the fact that we are living in a time of genuine hatred, and then there is a particular hatred for our religion, unfortunately. Please don't panic. This is not the first time Islam has been under attack. Islam has a beautiful long tradition of 1,400 years plus. It has gone through very, very difficult periods. It went through the Crusades and came out smelling of roses. It went through 2 world wars. It went through different movements. It went through the Industrial Revolution. It went through the Renaissance. It went through so many different cultural revolutions. But Islam still came out. وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. Allah in the Holy Quran says, we will take days between people. You have good days, you have bad days. So there is no reason to be downhearted in this day and age, no matter how negative the attitude towards Muslims right now. We are still number one. We are still the proud Gulams of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No one is going to take that link away from you. They can strip us of everything, but they will never strip away our link, our mahabba and attachment to our Hafiz sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the first real change that I have seen in the last 10, 15 years, and inshallah we will take it back to the Masjid, is this anti-Islam climate that we live in. Number 2, what is the second real change that I have witnessed in society? Technology. Now, technology has always been an ascending line. Technology is better and better and better. The trains of 50 years ago, compared to today, of course they are better today. Compared to a car, compared to EV. So I've witnessed that, for the 40, 50 years I've been on Earth, I've seen a general ascendancy in technology. But you know what happened? At the end of the 90s, at the end of the 90s, this line just basically went completely vertical when the internet came along. It changed everything. It was a game changer for everyone. It changed every single aspect of our lives. And then, when the internet came onto the phone, then it became even more vertical. And since then, we have the development of artificial intelligence. Now the ascendancy of technology is quite scary. I'm in a position to say that because I actually lived in a time when there was no internet. Where the only phone you had was in the home and it was attached, it was a landline. Like in order to put the TV on, you didn't even have a remote control. You had to physically get up and change the channels. That if you wanted to watch a match of the day, you have to watch it on a Saturday. You couldn't watch it on demand anymore. You had to watch it on 10:30 on Saturday, and that's it. If you missed it, you missed it. So I was very fortunate, I would say, that I lived a life where the technology was very, very basic. And I've seen it gone. And the changes, especially in the last 5 or 6 years when it comes to technology, is quite scary. Many people welcome it. Many people are talking about how convenient and streamlined life has become. But I continue to remind you that in Australia, for example, a law is being passed to ensure that secondary school children cannot bring a phone to the school anymore. They're going to ban it outright. So maybe the phone is not necessarily good for it. I had an educationalist say, and this was a quote from 7-8 years ago, way before the prominence of Instagram, way before the prominence of Snapchat. He said that it is safer to give a handgun to a young child rather than a phone. It causes less damage with a handgun rather than with a mobile phone. The people of Islam will understand that. So that's the second reason. Technology has hit the roof. The third point is related to that. The third point is now that the thirsty doesn't go to the well anymore. The well comes to the thirsty. This is the general change I've seen in society in the last decade. We have become a sloth society, a lazy society, a susk society, a society which is marked by kaslan, laziness. We don't physically get up to do anything anymore. You know, in Leicester, in Derby, in Nottingham, I don't know what the situation is like here in the northwest. Most city centres now are barren. You know those independent shops that we would get? You know those high street shops like Woolworths and so forth? They're all gone. The reason? Because we've become a lazy society. We don't go to the shops through Amazon, the shop comes to us. We don't go to the restaurant anymore. Why would we? The restaurant can come to us in 29 minutes flat, thanks to Uber Eats, thanks to delivery. It is possible, and I never thought it would be possible. And in the olden days, you know, people would actually go to a car showroom and they would speak to the nice man and the gentleman, you know, the gentleman in the nice suit. You know, on a Sunday afternoon, I want to buy a car from you. Can I order a car? And you would spend hours going through the different colors, through the different schemes, through the different specifications. I promise you, you can download a Masjid app and you can order the phone sitting at home and it will be delivered to you at your doorstep. You won't even have to go to the showroom. It will come to you. So we become a society now where we don't have to go anywhere anymore. Everything comes to us. The cinema comes to us now. The restaurant comes to us. And this is something I will pick up on, inshallah ta'ala, in a few moments. We don't need to go to the Masjid anymore. Why? The Masjid comes to us. Whether this is a good thing, whether this is a bad thing, inshallah ta'ala, we will talk about it. These are the three seismic changes I would say have happened in society from my own humble, from my uneducated opinion. Number one, racism, anti-Islamic sentiments everywhere. They don't even need a reason to call you a pastor. They just call you. They don't need a reason to hurt a person. They just do it now. There doesn't need to be a headline for someone to throw a pig's head into a masjid anymore. It could be any day of the week, any internet topic. The second side of change that I talked about, number two, is technology. In particular, the smartphone, in particular, the internet, and as we've seen the development of it, artificial intelligence. Number three, we don't go anywhere anymore. Everything comes to us. We don't, the plastic doesn't go to the well comes to the plastic. How has this affected the masjid? Needs to be changed. This is inshallah ta'ala what I will talk about now. Number one, I said that we are living in a very anti-Islamic climate. What has the masjid done? What should the masjid be doing? Alhamdulillah, summa alhamdulillah. I have seen it up and down the country, from the Sunni community, from the Bareilly community. Our Bareilly Imam, our Bareilly leadership has understood the very sensitive climate of this country. And have understood and appreciated that we must keep our masjid doors open at all times. This is the biggest way we can stop anti-Islamic hate. Because the average Gora, the average white man that walks across the street, thanks to the Daily Mail, thanks to Sky News, thanks to Twitter, he has already got an opinion of what is going on in the masjid. He's got his stereotype. The Bareilly community has been like, the only way you can break that stereotype is inviting that person. So masjid now are much more open. Our masjid now are doing whatever they can to educate their larger community about what the masjid is about. Great masjid up and down the country now. In the school They would always have visits of school children, primary and secondary, coming into the masjid. Stop it. What it is doing is breaking the hedge. And it's happening everywhere now. Alhamdulillah, it's an amazing accomplishment, many countries. Masjid now, for example, in the month of Ramadan, you might not like it. Sometimes are worried about what kind of guests are called sometimes. But people of the larger community in the month of Ramadan are called for iftars. The mayor, the local politicians, the school teachers, and so forth. Deep down, it's important. Yes, it is important to get that in the local newspaper. It is important that we give them a little gift. It is important that we have one or two photos and put it on our social media. Because if you don't, it just creates more suspicion at all levels of society in all things. Masjids now realize that our job is not only to serve the Muslim community, we have an opportunity and we have a responsibility, a sunnah one, to help the non-Muslim community as well. What it is doing is stopping the anti-Islamic climate that is taking over this country. I think it's a wonderful thing. And what we see now is that people are being invited at all times. Services being offered are not just visitors. I was in America in November during the presidential election at the beginning of November. I was in a masjid in Texas. Our masjid was a voting station. Now here, the polling system is very simple, it's quite straightforward. But in America, it's quite complicated. There's lots of machines and fingerprints and whatnot. It's a very big setup. But the masjid in Houston, they put a huge amount of effort in to ensure that they met all of the guidelines given by the government on how to become a polling station. And it was an event where you saw the blacks, the whites, the Hispanics, the people who had their suspicions about the masjid generally, coming, having a cup of tea, voting and eating. It made a huge difference. These measures are important. You find, unfortunately, thanks to the financial help of this country, is that many masajid now are food banks. In Leicester, every Sunday afternoon at Zohar, everyone knows if you go to Masjid al-Bilal, that you can pick up some food, inshallah. It's happening up and down the country. The big masajid are embracing this idea. So you will get at the door of the masjid, in the car park and so forth, a place where people, black, white, young, old, whichever background, they are coming and they are using sadaqah, basically they are eating our nails. They call it food, but we call it nails. We've always given that. These measures are very, very important. So I will mention a few points, but I will link those two together now. I said to you one of the main features of this country now, the climate of this country, is one of suspicion, one of hate, one of Islamophobia. What has the Bahraini community done? It hasn't gone and, basically petitioned down the street. It started doing grassroots work in their community, that's how it does. That if you go low, we will go high. If you show hatred, we will show love. If you have suspicion, we will give you clarification. That at any given opportunity, we will come to you and invite you to our side. That's the first thing about that. Number two, technology. I said that technology is on the ascendancy. And certainly with the smartphone, certainly with the internet and artificial intelligence, it has reached a very, very crazy height. I would say that alhamdulillah, our masajid slowly but surely have embraced technology brilliantly. In simple things, even the fact that sometimes programs are streamed, that is recordings. 20, 30 years ago, we used technology to preserve the great features given by our ulama. So our youngsters won't even know what I'm talking about. We have cassettes out there. Islam, you have some amazing figures and they're all in cassette form. In the 70s and 80s, now we're using technology. They came to see people. There's a great use of technology. What do we have now here, subhanAllah, when it comes to collection on Friday, we have contactless payment. A game changer. Because now we are living in a very cashless society. And the very fact that people can just tap their debit card on a day of Friday and donate, it means ease for the muqtadi, it means ease and more money for the management committee, for the masajid as well. For many years now, our madrasas, especially in the Northwest, they are embracing technology. They are using it to good effect. There are many madaris up and down the country when a student comes to a madrasa in the evening, they are given an iPad and all of the work that they have been doing and have been set with their payment. There are many asatidha who are using Google Classroom. Zoom, as you know, since the COVID has become a very, very integral part of how our ulama teach nowadays. We are embracing technology wherever we can. When it comes to the location of masajid, 30 years ago, you know, when you travel to a certain place, you just have a musalla in the car, you know you're not going to find a masjid. It's not about trying to search for it on an AA map. You just put a musalla in your car and some money and know that somebody's going to have to read in the mosque. Every single masjid, you could say, is now on Google Maps. You know where to stop now. And not just any masjid, but our Sunni masjid as well. You know what facility they have. For example, if you're traveling on a Friday, you have family, and you want to know whether the sisters, the wife, the children can also perform Salat al-Jum'ah in the masjid. You know this before. This is the way that technology has been embraced as well. Then, a lot of our masajid, they are embracing and accepting social media. A lot of masajid, they have their own YouTube channel. They have their Instagram page. They have their Twitter page. They have their Snapchat page. It's a way of connecting with our youngsters as well. In the future, I want to engage into a crystal ball game and perhaps predict what might happen in the future when it comes to technology, in particular with artificial intelligence. Perhaps you could talk about this when we have our discussion at the end. I am convinced that in a number of years' time, our Jummah is going to completely change. When people come into Jummah in a few years' time, I'm convinced that people are either they might have a headphone or they might have their own earpiece anyway. But thanks to AI, people are going to walk into the masjid, and when they come to listen to the masjid speak, they won't actually listen to the imam. But each person will have their own personalized speech on their phone and they listen to it in the masjid. Artificial intelligence will work out what kind of read they've had, what kind of words they've been using. Artificial intelligence will work out what kind of person will come into the masjid. Have you got 10 minutes? Have you got 20 minutes? And subhanAllah, when a person walks into the masjid, he's going to have a tailor-made, ready speech ready for him that he's going to listen to on his headphones in the masjid. When it comes to 1:30, the imam will do the khutbah in Arabic, everybody will do Jummah, and everybody will go home. Who knows this might happen? And what we mean then is that now we don't have a language barrier problem. When a Somalian comes into a Pakistani masjid, he knows he's going to get it in his own language. It might be a personalized thing. Who knows? It might happen in the future, it might not happen in the future. Number two, I am convinced we are now heading to the direction of virtual theism. We're going to get virtual sheikhs and mulis now on our phones. To check up on us, have you read the Mosque? To give us that gentle advice. You know, to make us feel better. Will it work or not? Because I'm old, my opinion is going to be different to perhaps the youngsters. And I won't even mention what my opinion on this is. But I'm convinced now that we are heading, like people have their own personal assistants online, personal friends online, personal pets online. We are heading to personal sheikhs and virtual ones online. In reality, all it is behind it is just basically binding and finding. It's not really personal. But a person who feels comfort and peace that, look, I am getting ready-made advice, tailor-made advice according to what I need. Number three, this area worries the life out of me. And that is that AI is becoming very, very prominent when it comes to producing literature, to writing speeches, to writing books. AI is taking over now. Even on the most basic AI apps now, you can just simply say that ChatGPT, give me a speech, 10-minute speech on Iman. Write me a 10-minute speech on the Fazilat of Hajj. Write me a 10-minute speech on the importance of Salam. Within 5 seconds, that speech will be ready. Why does it worry me? It worries me because, you know, if I was to write that speech and I would open books, it would take me hours. But those hours going into learning that speech and researching that speech is a learning curve for myself. I don't accidentally learn that when I'm looking for example on particular ahadith on the superiority of a masjid, when I open a book and when I open the index, I'm going to also find other topic areas which might interest me in the future. When you Google search something, you never get accidental learning. You only get what you must do. So I'm convinced now that the job of the adil, the job of an imam, is being reduced. Whereas before you would depend on him to deliver a speech, we're not convinced now whether the imam has written his own speech. Whereas many of you might know this, a person like myself who writes articles all of the time, my job will slowly become irrelevant. People will say, well, we don't need Hafiz Ather Hussain because we just, whatever subject area we want an article with, we just type it into our computer and to our phones, and it will be ready for us in 5 seconds time. We don't need to wait for Hafiz Ather Hussain. So AI certainly is a game changer when it comes to the ulama, when it comes to research, when it comes to the imam. So final thing, virtual ziyarat. I'm convinced will happen very soon as well. You know, with these wonderful goggles and the Apple Vision and everything else. People will know Baghdad before going Baghdad. People will know exactly what's going to happen in Qudus before getting to Qudus. People will know what will happen in Muzdalifah, what will happen in Arafah, what will happen in Mina before getting to Mina. That everyone will see, you know, into the most minute and perfect of detail what Baghdad Sharif is like, what Cairo is like, what Makkah is like, what Kuba is like, what Uhud is like. And I know very well that there were already many apps on our phone which do that with Al-Masjid al-Nabawi, which do that with certain areas, which do that with the Kaaba Sharif, that you can get a 360 view of everything that is going on there. That, I am sure, will extend and extend and extend. Important, and I think it's important because sometimes our youngsters say that, look, when it comes to embracing technology, you know, our Mullis and our Imams are really slow. We're not slow, we're just calculated. We weigh things up. We look at the pros and cons. We don't dive into something straight away, but rather we take our time and look at the positive and negative of it. You know, a lot of ulama simply don't go near AI. There's no rush. Certainly, I am one of those individuals who don't really depend on it at all. In fact, I hate it. The third thing, and inshallah ta'ala, we will conclude with this, is I said that the first change that has happened in society is we've become a very lazy society. We don't go anywhere, everything comes to us. Since technology has taken over, and since the ascent of the internet, the websites and so forth, I'm going to mention 5 or 6 things, 5 or 6 reasons why people would come to the masjid in the 80s and the 90s. A reason why someone would physically have to get up from their home and visit the masjid. Number 1, to ask the imam a question. If you had a masla, you would have to come to the masjid yourself and ask it directly. Number 2, timetables for namaz. You would have to collect a paper version in the masjid every single month or every single 2 weeks. Number 3, Eid announcements. Eid announcements back in the 80s and 90s, quite simply, you'd have to be in the masjid. You'd have to come to the masjid and know whether it is Eid tomorrow, whether it is Ramadan tomorrow. Number 4, live speeches. In the 80s and 90s, you know, our Masjid be there. If you missed it, you missed it. Number 5, that's in Islami. If you want to learn, you have to get up. It's not going to come to you. You have to make the effort for it. You have to go to the supper. Ask Adama Muqaddam Shadada sitting, mashallah. He had to get up from Manchester and go to China. He had to go to Pakistan. He never came. And then finally, the madrasa. Children would have to physically come to the madrasa. So in the 80s and 90s, to answer a question to the Imam, to get a timetable, to know about the announcements for namaz, to listen to live speech, for that's in Islam, for madrasa, you have to physically come to the masjid. With each one of them I've mentioned now, you can get it sitting at home. You don't have to come to the masjid anymore. Everyone now has their Imam on speed diet. You know, most of our time, unfortunately, you wouldn't believe how many questions we get a day on WhatsApp. Where everyone's, personalized Imam now. They never come to the masjid. People I don't even know, I don't even recognize them. And it all starts the same way. It's not a criticism. Every single question is a value thing. Every single question starts with Assalamu alaikum, Hafiz Ather. Quick question. Everybody say to me, quick question. It's never a quick question. You know what it means? It means Hafiz Ather, I need a quick answer. A question is never quick. So I don't know where that quick question gets comes into it. And everybody, they've got their personalized right now. For almost a decade, perhaps more now, if you want to know the Masjid timetable, in fact, for the whole year now, you have that on the Masjid website. Learning now, since COVID, has now become more and more online. Don't go to the Masjid. Don't go to the madrasa. Don't bother taking the kids at 5 o'clock. Just sit at home and the Imam will take your child's lesson. You will check with them and so forth. When it comes to speeches, why would you come to the masjid for the speech? Where you sit and comfortably, you might not get a place next to the wall, you don't know how long it's going to take. At least at home, I can listen to it comfortably, I can drink tea, I can watch the football at the same time, I can have a cup of tea, I can do the gardening, I can do a million and one things, and listen to the speech. That's what people have to do today now. And people see that we don't need to come to the masjid, while the masjid has come to us. This now, this is the safety point now. I think this is the real danger now. This third trend out of all of them is the most dangerous. It didn't start with COVID, because this was happening before COVID as well. But now we've got it into our heads now that we don't need to go to the masjid because the masjid will come to us. We don't need to listen to the speeches. We don't need to go for the mosque. We don't need to go to the timetable. We don't need to go to the Sunday class. We don't need to go to the Khatam on Thursday. Why? Because everything is happening online. This, unfortunately, is going to kill us. We need the masjid. We need to physically come to the masjid. We need to occupy the masjid. You cannot have Islam without the masjid. There is no such concept of a mosque-less Islam. It has never worked in history and it never will. The masjid will always be central to everything that happens in our lives. So when it comes to your shopping, when it comes to ordering your car, when it comes to ordering your garden, when it comes to ordering your food, when it comes to ordering your gadget, by all means go on Amazon and have it delivered at home. Be as lazy as you want. But please, don't expect the masjid to come to you, you have to go to the masjid. It's not going to be your place. And I'll give you 3 or 4 reasons why the masjid is more important than ever before. Like it or not, socially speaking, Izzat and Ihtiram comes back to the masjid. And no other place in society. You know, when a person in a community passes away, and the Imam makes an announcement, and people talk about this person, and they mention it with good words. You know, if you want to mention a deceased, a marhum in a good way, what's the first, most common attribute that you give to him? You say that he was a namazi. You say he was Masjid father. You don't get he was a billionaire, or he had an Audi, or he used to wear a Rolex. He was such a great man, he used to wear a Rolex. You don't get that. Our izzat, our ihtiram, it always comes back to our link and nisbah with the masjid. In that sense, nothing has changed. When our parents, they take our youngsters for rishki, when they take them, for example, for potential marriage partners, nothing's changed. The first question is always, is he a namazi? Does he go to the masjid? And when, especially when it comes to male Muslims, and I'm sorry to wake you up on this, if you're not coming to the masjid and you're expecting a daughter to have, you're not going to get it. You know, that's one of the first things that parents look for, especially your daughters. They want to know that their future son will actually come to the masjid. If they don't come to the masjid, they ain't no rishta. And it's almost the unwritten rule, I would say, that if he's not coming to the masjid, people's and parents' mindset, it means that he's in the bazaar. He's in the streets, he's in the clubs. They want to know where they are spending their time. Number two, your best friends are from the masjid. Your best friends are not from school, college, and university. The best friends you get are always linked with the masjid or with the places of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Hajj and Umrah. I promise you, and I've said this on many occasions, you know, on my phone, I don't know how, but I've got about 900 contacts in my address. You want to know how many people I have that are still in contact with from my school days? Zero. I don't have any friends left from school days. There's not a single person that I met school with whose number I still know, who are friends I still know. College from 16 to 18, more than those that we were in Milton Keynes, no friends whatsoever. Yeah? I have no idea, I can't even remember anyone's name in my class. I went to university in Birmingham for 3 years, doing politics. At the time, yeah, I had friends, but am I still in contact with them? Not a single one. I don't want to know that anyway. Even like I told them, we should have probably woken. Let's come to the masjid now. I have friends that I've known since I was 6 years old. 6 years old. 42 years ago. 6 years old, I'm still friends with them, I still play football with them. And why? Because I met them in the masjid. My Hifz class friends, and our Hifz class started at 9. Believe me, you know, we would become professionals and whatever else here, but you know, when we were with one another, we still like the Hifz class when we were 9 years old. We're still great friends. My Ather Hussain friends, you know, when you study the Darul, Allah puts a very special friendship between people because of those friends. You become friends for life. You know, there is no relationship you get when you live with someone in the Darul. The friends that I have from Darul, I was meeting them this week. I was on the phone with them for this week only moments ago. And this friendship, when does it go back to? It goes back 25 years. You need the masjid. You don't get decent friends in society anymore. Do you really think the person in your workplace is your friend? Is that what your job? Do you really think your friendship with your friends in school and college and university is a sustained friendship? It's scissor. It's dimension. We need the masjid because we need human contact. And the best human contact is friends, and the best friends will always get in the house of Allah. It's facts. And I know every single one of you have your own experiences of that. And I certainly know that none of you will disagree with me. We need the masjid. Society is heading to a couch potato society where everything comes to you. We still need to physically get up and get to the masjid. Number 3, mental illness is a big, big problem nowadays. Mental illness has come about because of isolation. It has come about because we don't talk anymore. It's come about because we are fixated with the dunya. Mental illness has come about because we are depressed now about looking at the lifestyle of others. I'm not going to go into this into much detail. the house of Allah regularly, I am not saying that the Muslims don't have mental illness issues. I am not going to give a blanket statement like that. It would be very, very foolish to do so. But if you come to the Masjid regularly, your mental well-being will improve. Why? Because the one who connected with humans. After every Namazi will meet. You feel human. We live in a society now where our elders, you know, the Buddha body of society, the OAPs, they can go a week without speaking to someone. They live at home, they have the TV on all day, they leave the home once a week. And that's the first time they have a conversation. That's why you would have noticed that when you go to Tesco, Asda, when you go to Sainsbury's, or when there's a Buddha in front of you checking out, she takes 10 to 15 minutes. And she won't shut up when it comes to speaking to the assistant. You know why she won't shut up? Because that's her first conversation in 7 days. How Ramadan, how blessed, it's not going to listen if you have to wait 10 minutes. But for her, that's the most important thing. The same happens in the post office. People simply don't talk anymore, and they're wondering why our heads are exploding in mental health. When you come to the Masjid regularly, you are connected with society, you are connected with humans. 5 times a day, you are checking up on your friends. I'm sorry to say, you can't check up on your friends by texting them. Muqaddam is sitting there. Alama Muqaddam, imagine. I text Alama Muqaddam text me. I say, Hafiz, how are you? I text back with an emoji, big dumpy smile, and say, I'm fine. Muqaddam will see that emoji or that message, but he cannot truly know from that message whether I really am well or not. You know, sending a message with a fancy emoji only takes a movement of your thumb. The only way Muqaddam will truly know whether I am well or not when he sees me, when he sees the body something, when he sees my smile, when he sees my frown. The Masjid is providing you that every single day. It helps you check up on society. You know, going back to America in Ramadan, there was one individual, his name is, he's the son actually of Maulana Hafiz Ather Hussain Al-Azhari, who wrote the Tarjuma, one of the Tarjumas of Tarjuma. Very, very amazing scholar. He's passed away now. His son is living in California. He was coming to the Masjid in Ramadan and then he disappeared. And it was a good 3-4 days. And you know, usually I thought, where does he come? And later we found out that he had to go to the lake for some reason. But I marvel on the Masjid system, that I know who's doing well, who's not, who's absent, who's present, who's got a job, who hasn't got a job, purely just by coming to the mosque. Every single person we are told that the Prophet used to stand with his head and face his congregation and say, is there anyone ill in our community? Just go and visit them. Is there anyone who has seen a dream? Maybe you can interpret it. Is there anyone with some kind of problem? Maybe you can talk about it. Coming to the Masjid makes you human. It's because we have become digital robots that people are very bothered. That people are suffering from mental illness. Ask yourself, where on earth do you get quiet space? And you have to understand that quiet space is so important for thinking. It's so important that you are exposed to silence because it clears them. I drove 2.5 hours up, Alhamdulillah, from Leicester, our beautiful drive, to the M6 with a beautiful Lancashire. I didn't put the radio on for most of time. Most of my journey was in silence. Why? Because it's great. It's great to reset. Where in society today can you find silence? Can you find it at home? Can you find it in the bazaar? You know, nowadays you can't even find it in the university library. The only place of society in society today which is marked by silence, you are sitting in right now in the Masjid. No matter how much of a hectic day you have had, when you come to the Masjid and you do sajda at Isha, and listen to the Imam and do parts in silence, Allah, but it's a game changer. It makes you feel better again. People nowadays, I want to show my mental well-being out. I'm doing a lot of walking nowadays. I'm doing exercise. I'm going to the park for running and so forth. Why don't you do the walking in which there is a spiritual reward as well, which is coming to the house of Allah? The Messenger, peace be upon him, said that every single step you take to the house of Allah is a means of some forgiveness of your minor sins. It gives a purpose behind it. You get the physical exercise and you get the spiritual benefit. I'm not against walking in the park. I'm not against walking around the block. But it's purposeless. It's meaningless. It doesn't take you anywhere. You're quite literally a gypsy. You're just wandering around, aren't you? When you are walking to the house of Allah, it gives you a sense of purpose. That I am going to the masjid, every single step of mine is a means of forgiveness. Every single step of mine is also ibadah. When I get there, I'm going to do a meaningful act. It gives you a sense of purpose now, and you are getting the physical benefit. And subhanAllah, when you look at the logistics and the perfection of all of the movements of salah, it is nothing but your well-being. Whether it is, your back, whether it is your leg, whether it is your ankle, it's a perfect workout. So in this day and age where people talk about well-being, the well-being that you are after, the answer is likely in the masjid. Coming to this idea that everything's online now, we can get the speech online, we can get our education online. Me, I'm exposing my age here, I still prefer one-to-one human education. Because in Islam, education and ilm is the outer and the inner. When you go on YouTube and you are learning online, you are only taking the outer ilm from the ustad. You are not taking the inner ilm from the ustad. You're not learning from his mannerisms. You're not learning from that magnetic spiritual vibe from him. You're not getting that one. I only read maybe 1920 ahadith from Huzur Jalal Nabi Tarsha. What I read from his mannerism during those ahadith stayed with me for eternity. There was one alim Ibn Jawzi, I think it is. He said that when I was younger, my father used to take me to a hadith study. And there was an imam, he would read one hadith, and then he would cry for 20 minutes. He would spend most of his time waiting and crying and weeping in the favor of Allah. Later in life, Ibn Jawzi said, I learned more from the crying than the actual hadith itself. You don't get this online. You can't do Dars al-Nizami online. You have to live under the Ustad. You won't get a Qibla fi Zadata there by a version of Qibla fi Zadata. I'm sorry, you have to be the real one. And I'm convinced now that ilm is suffering because we think that the ilm from the technology, from the screen, is still ilm. It's not. Ilm is two-dimensional. There's the inner and the outer. Ilm, when it's given online, is only giving you the outer, it's not necessarily giving you the inner. The conclusion was that inshallah ta'ala we will open up to summarize what I said before. I said there's three changes in society. Number one, we become more anti-Islamic. Number two, technology does what we do. Number three, we become a lazy society where everything comes to us, we don't need to care about doing everything. With those 3 points, the importance of the masjid is pivotal. Number one, when it comes to anti-climate, anti-Islamic climate, our masjids now, especially in our Bahraini community, are more open. What I mean by more open, we welcome people that are non-Muslims. It's working. Number two, when it comes to technology, we have already embraced lots of technology. In the future, we might be embracing more technology. I want to hear from you whether that technology is going in the right direction. Number three, what we said is that in this lazy society, everything, our shopping, our khana, our cars, our gadgets, they are delivered to our door. And to a large extent, the imams of Masjid, they have been delivering your masjid to the door. Your timetable, your education, the Eid announcement, everything, it's coming to your door, it's coming to your couch. You don't even have to move your finger. This, in my opinion, is where the fatal part of our religion comes from. We don't want to be that kind of society. We still have to physically get off and go to the masjid. The final point, inshallah, I think this masjid, and indeed all of the masajid in this country, are a testimony to the hard work, the perseverance, the sabr, the sacrifice, the time that our Muslims gave to our masajid. And there is nothing on God's earth that we can ever do to repay that debt. We, the new generation, only have to occupy and maintain the masajid. We don't have to build them. We don't have to face any lectures. We don't have to write and petition the MPs and councillors. We don't have to go door to door and empty our warehouses. Everything is done. The only thing that we are required to do is come to the masjid. Our job has been made very, very easy by our elders, by our Muslim, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, 1,000, 1,000,000 salams. Number two, if you want security in our masajid, the best security is always numbers. Occupy the masjid. You occupy the masjid in Bradford, in Manchester, in Leicester, Nottingham. No Quran will ever do in this direction. Muslims are strong people. Muslims know how to look after themselves. You have numbers in masajid, and I promise you will be the safest place. Masjid get attacked when people see an opportunity. They see an opportunity when they see there is no one around. And that's when they attack. But when the masjid, alhamdulillah, is packed day and night, then you don't have these problems. We don't want to see the situation happen to our masajid, which is exactly what happened to our church. Please. You know, again, I don't have any vested interest, but as a man of religion, it kind of hurts me when churches are being turned into wedding halls. They're becoming empty now. And it scares me and it hurts me because I'm worried at the back of my head that tomorrow, the way that the churches are being sold off today, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, protected, that tomorrow this will happen to our mosques as well. This will happen if we have that mindset that we don't need the mosque. Because the mosque is already coming. I look for Islamic guidance because I'm following Quran personally. Or because I have documents in the book. You know, if Islam is a word, you have to physically go to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The final thing I would say, and this is an interesting one, perhaps the ulama sitting here would like to pick their opinion on that. Now, thereafter that I will not to your opinion, is that the fatwa in this country on Jummah prayers needs to be changed very quickly. What do I mean by that? Right now, if you perform Jummah prayer with 3 individuals in an office, in a workplace, in your school, in college, in university, technically speaking, the ulama of this country have said that Jummah has been done. I would say in this day and age, you put the fatwa out, a universal fatwa in this country, that there is no Jummah except in the masjid. You cannot read Jummah in a prison. You cannot read Jummah in a library. You cannot read Jummah in your workplace. You cannot read Jummah in the college or university. Khalas. And force our youngsters to come to the masjid on practice. Because now I have seen now, unfortunately, is that, you know, Islam's system is what? That you need to come to the masjid. Come 5 days, times a day. Hence the great reward behind it, 25 or 27 times more reward. And that is beautiful, you know, merciful. But you say, but if you can't come every day, then just come once a week to Friday, yes? Because you need to come to the masjid. And that's why the Qadiyya and obligation and warning against missing Friday prayers is very, very clear in our religion. But now what our youngsters are doing, they're not coming to the 5 daily prayers, and they're not coming 2 months. So they can go months and months and months without seeing the house of Allah. But they still get their Jummah done in the college, in the university, in the office. Very, very dangerous. You cannot live a spiritual life, you cannot live a physical good life, a mental good life, without coming to the house of Allah. You need the masjid. The masjid has always changed
adapted to the set times. You know, if you look at our history, in the time of Rasulullah, subhanAllah, it was everything. It was even a court. It was a Darul Hukuma. You know, in the time of the Khulafa Rashidun, the Masjid, in particular Masjid Nabawi, it was the center of government, it was the parliament. It was where the Amir al-Mu'mineen was based. In early Islam, the Masjid was also a command center for the military. You know, when jihad was going on. You look at your history, and the Masjid was also a debating center where you had the influx of alien ideas in falsafa, Greek falsafa, and so forth. The Masjid has always adapted and changed. The Masjid is going to keep changing with the changes of society, even in Britain. So please, we always have to occupy the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah preserve our beautiful Masjid in this country. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve our Iman to it. Ameen. Wa ma alayna illa al-balagh. Please, I do want to hear some opinions. I'm going to give the mic. Please, I do want to hear some opinions on that. But if this is a question or an opinion, I do want to hear from people. Please.
You mentioned it because the lazy society type of things.
There
was like 6 things that you mentioned. There was like 6 things that you mentioned, saying that there was a service that was offered by the Muslim, but is no longer necessary for the person to come to the Muslim. So you mentioned that it was a lazy society, saying there was like 6 things that you mentioned. You say, well, this used to take place in Muslim, but now people are easily able to do their own, for example, eating out of this and etc. Is there something that the Masjid should offer that is not accessible except by moving through the Masjid?
Everything is replaceable now, I'm afraid. I think, the actual Jama'ah prayer, even if you think about the Jama'ah prayer, if at home I read, for example, with my brother, then I still get 25 times, 27 times the word. So, Islam's compassion and mercy is being exploited here. You know, because we can't do Jama'ah at home. Because through technology, we can be speeches at home. I think a lot of, even sometimes London and they are deliver that. It just basically means that we are living in a society now where people don't feel the need to go to the Masjid. We need to have a really good think over that. We need to really wrap the brains of our elders, of our ulama, of our young students, and answer that very, very important question of what can we do in the Masjid, which is exclusively something that they cannot get elsewhere, that forces them, to get off their couches and come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many masajid now who, the youngsters will like this, and I saw this in California, is they make the masjid a play center. Quite literally. So, the masjid where I was in a few weeks back, every Asr, after Asr, there was a massive car park, which is there alone in the we just throw the ball around. And the kids absolutely loved it. Dare I say, there was a room in the masjid, they had basically like 2 out here. And some of the lads straight after Eid, I suppose you see, so it's somewhat excusable. They put their PlayStation there. And they were playing games all afternoon. But the Imam plays a big role in all of this. The Imam has to be central in actually allowing these activities to take place and making people feel welcome in the Masjid. The Masjid has to be welcome. I think that's very important. I hope that answers your question. Others, please. When people feel silent, go silent when I ask questions like this. I kind of get worried. I think maybe they never understood what I said. So you need to learn something. Please, if you have any idea of where technology is going tomorrow. Number 2 is technology necessarily a good thing? Can you think of some very, very good ways you have benefited from technology related to the Masjid? Do you think there are some very, very bad effects of that as well?
Because they know it's live stream and whatever, why should I go?
There's a lot of factors in that. There's a lot of factors in that. You're absolutely right. I mean, I even mentioned that some people feel that it's better to watch it at home rather than come to the Masjid. People have different lifestyles. How do we get about that? Do we stop live streaming? Look, I travel a lot. So there are times when I do want to listen to a particular speech. And I do want to be able to catch up on it. So it's a two-edged sword. Yes, undoubtedly on the day it does affect attendance. Some what they do is they record the event, but it's never live. And they wait a week or they wait 3 days and then put it up. So that way it doesn't try to affect the mosque attendance. It's really difficult with technology. It's really difficult.
Any other thing? I need more than that.
Can I ask you a question, sir, please? The falling number of students in madrasas due to the technology basis that you just pinpointed in a sociological way, how can we as masjids or madrasas readdress that issue of bringing these young students back into the madrasa? I know we raised a lot of fundamental issues there. There is a falling number, a significant.
Okay. Madrasa is an area where I do specialize in. Madrasa is the most important part of a masjid today. If a masjid has the most amazing member and facilities, wuzu and everything, but their madrasa is substandard, then that masjid is not successful in my opinion. The masjid is the most important part of that. Number one, madrasa should start resembling what happens in schools more. So if it means chairs, if it means smart screens, if it means TV, if it means tablets, yes. It has to resemble schools more in terms of attendance. As soon as my child is 15 minutes late for a lesson or in the morning, I get a phone. But our parents, they send their children to madrasa sometimes half an hour late. They're not bothered, and the imam doesn't even bother checking those matters. So that's the first thing, it has to resemble that much more. Number two, the masjid has to be an open space for our youngsters to voice their opinion. Right now, the masjid formula is, this is a jug, this is a cup. The imam is the jug and the student is the cup. The imam pours the ilm, the water into the jug, and that's it. It's a one-way system. There has to be more interaction. In Nottingham, we used to have a very young group of madrasa students. For the first 15 minutes of every single lesson, the teacher, his name's Guy, an amazing teacher, he would spend it, no introduction to the class, no open the Quran, he would spend it saying, tell me what you did in school today. Tell me what your friends have been up to. Tell me what you're talking about today. Tell me what's trending. And there would always be something where an Islamic opinion would need to be given to that child. Oh, this is what happened, this is what the Islamic perspective is. What it would do then, it makes the child interested in what's going on. Number two, tomorrow, if that child now has a personal issue, and he needs someone confidential to speak, he's not going to in any way hesitate to speak to that same teacher. So we have to get out of this formula where we think that imam's job is just to give the knowledge. No, the imam needs to take knowledge from the children as well. He needs to understand what is happening in society and formulate his Jummah speeches accordingly. Give the guidance to the community and to the parents accordingly. Number three, madrasa should be memorable. Whatever the teacher can do to make the lesson memorable, do it. Even if it just means dairy milk at the end of the lesson. Even if it means a kicker run. There was one lad who was a teacher. His name is Imran, he worked in Nottingham with me. He had a Rolls Royce for me. It was a wedding in his family, so he had a Rolls Royce for me. He brought it to the madrasa. And you know what he did for the first half an hour? He just basically, 2 by 2, he said, go to the children. And he said, go and sit in the Rolls Royce, start it up, mess about with it, that's it. And that's a small thing, but it just stayed with the children. Sometimes we have leagues Sometimes it might be villages, CA practice, who gets the most CA practice. It doesn't have to be that. I mean, every masjid can accommodate intake of 10 people. Every mosque I've seen in America seems to have a basketball court at the back. These are simple things. Most of our mosques have car parks. So make the masjid memorable. Okay, number two, ilm is not one way, it's always two ways. Okay, number three, it has to emulate what's happening in our schools as well. Schools are way ahead, light years ahead of what's happening in our education. The only decent book I have seen in the last 5 years when it comes to madrasa is the Qamar Academy. Why does the Qamar Academy work as a whole project? It works because it's presented. Because it follows what's happening in school. It has lessons objective, it's color coded, it has tests, it has examinations. So you have to, keep up with what is happening in Western education.
Just answering the brother's question as well is, because I'm teaching in the Madaris and I know a lot of the teaching also is seen as vocational. So it's not seen as a professional career. So the investment is not there.
Yeah.
So when people come into teaching the masjid, some of my fellow teachers, they're not professional teachers. So for them, it's not a thing that's main priority. It's something they just do on the side.
Yeah.
So they're not going to invest as much into the children. And also, they're not graduates of Alim programs. And that's a problem as well. Because I deal with the older children, alhamdulillah. Anyone who's a problem, they say, send him to Mulana Sahib, he'll deal with it. And when they sit in my class, I'll answer any question. No topic is off the table.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about anything, they can ask me anything and I'll answer. But the point is other teachers couldn't do that. And I think that's the investment is an issue because we see the imam as a professional and we'll pay him a wage. But we won't necessarily pay our mosque teachers the same way. We won't offer it as a career path. Someone will come into teaching, teach for 3 years and then leave. Another one will come in 2 years and leave. It's not like a 25-year career at the end where you're thinking, okay, I'll get a pension at the end of this, so, it's not that kind of thing.
Excellent point, sir. Excellent point. I'd rather have a young set of madrasa children with a small amount of money, but have an attachment with them and be there, long term. Sidi Mokhtar is absolutely right. It's like a football club. You have a manager which is in and out every 18 months, you're not going to develop a club. So what makes you think that's going to happen if you have, revolving door imams and revolving door madaris? The most successful masajid was the one where the imam had been competent. Huzur Mufakkir Islam, which is a perfect example of that. So it has to have that long-term planning for it. Go for it.
Two questions. We have a real struggle of getting teachers, purely because they probably have a full-time job and they've got to come. By the time they get home, it's probably 8 o'clock in the evening, so you work in a 9 to 5 job and to get a really good teacher to teach in the meantime, to do the 5 to 7 shift and then go home. So they get an open every day, so it's probably like 7 o'clock in the morning. So we have that issue in itself. The second question is, how do a lot of women want to engage with the mosque, but the mosque doesn't provide a facility to engage because they want to support the mosque, but the mosque is not willing to. How do we work with the women who want to support the mosque?
What was the first question?
First question is back to the teacher itself. How do we get?
Okay, yes, sorry. Okay, when it comes to the teachers, this is basically the reason I know about it is I produced a report for someone about madrasa. I made a suggestion. Madrasa has traditionally been from 5 till 7, or sometimes 4 till 7. And I'll tell you the reason. It's because when madrasa started in the 70s, children genuinely used to go to sleep at 9 p.m. So you couldn't keep it any later. So you'd have to get them home at 7 so they can eat and then get to bed at 9. Today, nobody sleeps at 9 p.m. So what I would do is change madrasas to start at 6 p.m. and let it up until 8 p.m. That's the first thing. What will that do? It will free up young, 20-year-old professionals who have jobs as accountants or whatever else, but they want to help in things. You don't have to ask them to commit 5 days a week. You ask them to commit at least 2. And And you get loads of stuff in and keep them coming in and make sure that they actually stick with that class. Even if it just means twice a week. I think that's the answer to that as well. The second thing about the sisters, if you are not looking after your sisters in a masjid, you're not looking after your family. You have to get the sisters involved. In America, I mean, we just tried to do anything we could to get the sisters involved.
And how did you do that?
You know, so we were having barbecue nights and, you know, we were doing classes for them in particular. They were playing through coffee mornings. We were having their exercise classes. We were walking. But if you don't, somebody mentioned this in America, and it's a really good point. All masjids look after the middle-aged man, the Muslim mayor. Very few masjids look after the youngsters. Then even few masjids look after our sisters. The thing is, now, you know when a Muslim mayor comes into the masjid, he doesn't bring anyone along with them. They might bring their son. But when you would have noticed, when a sister, when a mother comes to the masjid as a wife, she never comes alone, she automatically brings the husband, she automatically brings the children. So if you focus on bringing the sisters into the masjid, the attendance for the mayor will also increase. Well, because sisters never normally come alone. Male individuals always come to the masjid for our speeches, for our programs, for our mahabir. Why would they just put the coat on and get in the car and come? But they're not really focused on our sisters. And if our Masjid is focused on the sisters, we bring in lots more people. It's a serious problem. It's a really, really serious problem. We genuinely need 20 people in our madrasas.
Are we scared of spending that money on the sisters or on the kids? Is that where it lies? Or the bank balance will go down? There's a problem.
Every masjid is different. Every masjid is different. Every masjid's account is different. All I say is that 50% of your expenditure should be on madrasa. Because you know, for most masjids, the madrasa's income is 50%. You know, for any masjid, most of their income, regular income, comes from madrasa. Now, if income is 50% or more, then the investment should be in that. Because I promise you, in America, the biggest problem is they don't have a madrasa system. And it's really bad, because I cannot see Islam developing tomorrow in that country. It's really difficult. And you can say what you want about madrasa in this country, at least we still have a system. And it's been going since the 70s. And that's what saved our village, and that's why we have our youngsters wearing the imam. You don't have that in America. So it might seem right from your perspective, Hazrat, but believe me, that when you compare and contrast, we're actually in a 5.5 decent place. America is exactly like that. They've never had a madrasa system. You know what their madrasa system is? Sunday school, 2 hours on a Sunday. What is a teacher going to teach in 2 hours? And our youngsters, they get in 12 hours a week.
Some mosques have transitioned from the old school community trustees, etc., to sort of young blood. Some mosques still haven't done so yet. So what's your advice for their mosques to train on the elders? They sort of stop
Look, I understand where the elders are coming from. Why on earth, if I've got an expensive car, and I've got a 17-year-old daughter, okay, I've got a classic car in my hand. I'm not going to hand it over to my daughter just like that. I'm going to give her 15 hours lessons first and tell her, this is precious. The house of Allah belongs, the masjid belongs to Allah, but I'm sorry to say, our Muslims put a lot of time, effort, and sabr into putting these masjids. They're not going to come on to any day or talk. So our youngsters, please, if you want to don't be a backseat driver. If you want to get involved in the masjid, you have to come to the namaz. In Cambodia, in the early days, Yasser and a lot of the other youngsters, Hafiz Ather, they were running the whole show in that masjid. And I saw this firsthand. So the reason why the elder Buzurugs gave this responsibility to Yasser and so forth is because they never left the masjid.
find them in the masjid. In California, there I can see that transition happening. In the month of Ramadan, the youngsters, and I'm talking only 20 people, they did the whole intizam for iftar. From beginning to end, order of it was done by the youngsters. And the committee Azhari was sitting in the corner shop. And they happily gave this responsibility because these youngsters were coming to the masjid. So if you want to get involved, you have to come to the masjid. You cannot do it sitting at home and complain. The masjid of it's simple as that. Any other points? Youngsters, come on, youngsters, there are a lot of teens here. I want to hear from what you said as well. Don't ever think that your opinion isn't perfect. Your opinion matters more than anything else. Any other things before starting on from inshallah?
3 minutes.
Huh?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. For those who don't know, this is Alama Muqaddam Shahadasa. Alama Muqaddam Shahadasa is a graduate of Jamia Al-Karam, he studied in Pakistan as well. He lives in Manchester. Accrington. He lives in Accrington to do some fantastic work for our religion. I also depend on Muqaddam for my writings as well. So please on the way, I've only got a handful. Recently we wrote a book on the battle and the mountain of Uhud. So it's a small publication, it's only 50 pages. I promise you, even the youngest one, you can read it and follow it. People like Muqaddam give me great reading it, checking it, doing the editing. So please, if you can, do take a copy of this book on the way out. It will be a sadaqah for me. It will be a sadaqah for the hard work of Muqaddam as well. Any other questions? I just have a question for your brother.
Just in regards to our Namazis, are generally elderly. People who come to Namaz are generally elderly. How to increase the numbers of young people coming through in regards to
How to
increase the young people numbers coming through to the masjid? What age should they start, and what love should be given to the youngsters to embrace that going forward so that the number increase?
Let them help me on this. I think it's a hard one. I mean, if you can answer that, you can answer any question. But what you touched upon is this whole idea of how do you pass something on? How do you pass on the tradition to the modern? Sofa, it will come down to sofa, good companion. It's $1 million question. It's a fantastic question, but do I have answers to that? If I had answers to that, then, we need a better place for Allah. And we apply that not just to the masjid, but to every time.
Whatever you mean in regards to the elderly being more welcome to the youngsters, in regards to them, if they're given that love when they come,
I think that's important. I think that in the masjid in particular, our elders should be treated elite in an elite manner. So when it comes to khana, when it comes to gifts or whatever else, they can do with you. But I can't think of anything else. Please, does anyone have any suggestions?
I think in terms of like, if you're talking about small children, and it's about when they are ready for the masjid, when they understand the sanctity of the masjid in a way. If you're talking about youth and taking on responsibility, I think the youth need to serve first. They need to show that they're committed to the masjid. So there's an event, they need to give their time. If they give their time, then the elders will automatically trust them. But we want responsibility without giving anything.
Yeah.
And that's the mistake. We serve first, we earn the reward. We don't ask for it.
اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى ال سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.